This program is made possible in part thanks to generous donations from viewers like you.
Hello and welcome to the Suzanne Atwell Show. Thanks for joining us. In this episode, a once-in-a-generation opportunity for Sarasota. A performing arts center in a park on the bay in downtown Sarasota. We begin with the master plan. From a bird's eye view, you can see what may be the most expensive parking lot in the world. Fortunately, that's all changing. The conceptual master plan for a 53-acre park, now known as the Bay, includes a performing arts center to be located in the northeast corner of the park, south of the 10th Street boat ramp area. In addition to private funding, Sarasota City and County Commissions approved a 30-year tax increment financing plan that could pay for a significant part of the park and the Arts Center. Phase 1 of the park is open. There's a beautiful mangrove walk and a non-motorized boat launch on the bayou. And that's just the beginning. When you talk about the Bay and a performing arts center, the first thing that comes to mind is the Van Wezel. Its future has yet to be determined. Its past tells us a lot about Sarasota philanthropy and public land use. Louis Van Wezel was born in Amsterdam and immigrated to the United States, where he worked in the family diamond business, becoming a successful buyer for Tiffany's in New York. He and his wife Eugenia, a Russian immigrant, moved to Sarasota in 1934. Ken Thompson is recognized as the most important city manager in Sarasota history. Captured in this rare photograph at the Van Wezel, Thompson joked he was the first to perform at the famous hall. The third star in the Van Wezel legacy is David Cohen. He co-founded the Florida West Coast Symphony, where he performed as first violin and concertmaster. Cohen is credited by many as the man who conceived the Van Wezel. Cohen, Thompson, and others went to the Van Wezel Foundation for seed money. Ground was broken on April 25, 1968. It was designed by William Wesley Peters, a protege and son-in-law of world-famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright. The hall opened on January 5, 1970, with a sold-out production of Fiddler on the Roof. So here we are, half a century later. The Van Wezel Foundation is still dedicated to the performing arts and the legacy their namesake created. The process of making the dream of a new center a reality is beginning to take shape, and the guiding principles of the Cohens and the Van Wezels are very much alive. First and foremost, the Performing Arts Center and the Bay Park Conservancy will be partners with the City of Sarasota. To account for rising water conditions, it will be built on stilts to meet federal emergency management requirements. Architect designs and bids have not been selected, but some of the comparisons are the Perez Art Museum in Miami, Hansher Auditorium in Iowa City. There will be a grand open lobby with views of the bay, a 2,000-plus seat main stage with center aisle seating. It will include a smaller performance space with optional seating for special events, artists, and education. State-of-the-art acoustics, lighting, and digital technology will provide simulcast and recording functionality. To say the least, this is a big deal. To learn more about the vision, the process, and the plans, we turn to Cheryl Mendelson, CEO of the Van Wezel Foundation. You are leading the Van Wezel Foundation's effort to build a performing arts center. But this is way more than that, isn't it? I want to know what your vision is as art being transformative in this community that we live in.
The way we really think about this project is that it's a mission-driven community-based performing arts center. And the way I like to really think about it and describing it is where culture and community meet as a gateway together. So we're really excited to be able to think about that we're planning for the future, the growth of the community, in really listening to the aspirations of so many of our residents.
So what do you see as a vision in your terms, what this is going to look like in years to come?
So the way we're thinking about it is really that it's a place that connects artists, learners, and audiences. And it's really the connectivity where all three of those things meet. That's the secret sauce of Sarasota. So as we think about the vision, it really is about that connectivity in a vibrant park, which is a really, really exciting location to be able to have a world-class performing arts center that's open 12 months out of the year.
To that point, what is your relationship going to be between the Performing Arts Center and the Bay Park Conservancy, right next door?
Absolutely. So as we really think about the design and the integration of the Performing Arts Center in the park, it is a very close partnership and a relationship that we'll do together. The connectivity between the building and the nature in the park makes the location incredibly special. It's part of the experience I had, of course, coming from Chicago with Millennium Park and leading the Harris Theater. So we're looking at collective programming together that would be free and accessible. One of the key elements that we're really looking at also as part of the design for the Performing Arts Center is the ability to have simulcast technology that will really create the opportunity to have programming that will come out into the park and act as a gateway for the activation of really integrated programming 12 months out of the year. And as we're designing and building the park, there's obviously a very close relationship that we'll have between the park's architect and the building's architect as we take a look at making sure the access and the circulation and the relationship between the building and nature come together.
Okay, integrative in the way that building is going to be built. How will this all be integrated in the arts venues themselves?
So what we're really looking at some fabulous models from around the country. The Kennedy Center's new Reach facility is a wonderful example of how they took a look at people just walking by, basically, and being able to look in through what's happening to the arts inside the building. The ability to be able to have spaces that connect and look outside into the park. We look to collaborate with so many of the arts organizations and continue the rich relationship that the Van Wezel Foundation has had for over 30 years in the current Van Wezel Hall, obviously, and we're excited to be able to have a venue that I think other arts organizations, I hope, can blue sky and dream and think about the kinds of things that they can join us there in that wonderful location.
When you were at the Harris Theater, did you run into this type of thing with the community that you were in? Did you had to integrate other arts organizations within that community? A similar kind of thing?
Absolutely. The Harris Theater was actually designed with the idea that it would be the home for mid-sized and emerging music and dance companies. And so they had a very robust resident and guest company program in addition to presenting. And I really saw that the combination of those two things is really what made it a world-class venue. It also allowed for diversity in programming, an enormous variety of, I think, multi-generational programming, in addition to exploring new artistic forms and being able to take more risks together.
Sure, and I would be probably remiss in not mentioning the future of the Van Wezel Hall itself.
So the future of the Van Wezel Hall, as most people don't realize, it is owned and operated by the city. So the city has made a commitment to put together a blue ribbon committee that will really take a look at whether or not the hall could be repurposed for some other use. And we obviously want to honor the incredible legacy of the hall in some special way as we look to the future. We also have the commitment while we're building the new one that the current Van Wezel Hall will stay operating up until ribbon cutting, and we'll do a really, I think, important and valuable transition into a new performing arts center.
Wonderful. Share your thoughts on the operating agreement between the Performing Arts Center and the city.
The partnership agreement really is the structure that allows us to work together to finance, design, and build a new performing arts center. The foundation is in position to operate the new performing arts center as a nonprofit, which is really best practice around the country for the most successful performing arts center. So we're really excited to be able to work in this public-private partnership together, which again is a very common and major precedent around the country. For this size cultural project that leaves a legacy for the community, it really is important that it is a public-private partnership together to realize the promise of the master plan.
We are known in this community for our performing arts. You probably have figured that out over the last many, many months you've been here. We're also in the midst of an unprecedented number of arts development initiatives. The same way as Bayfront 2020, with community leaders, will groups like the opera, the Oslo, the orchestra, the ballet, will they be invited to provide their input and what they would like to see their place in this would be?
Absolutely. We've already really undertaken quite a bit of feedback. In terms of the general community, we've had over 18,000 people respond with their aspirations. We've reached out to all of the arts organizations. We've met with them. Through this process, we'll continue to do that. As I mentioned, we hope this is a home and a place for so much of the success that the other arts organizations here in our community have done. We don't view this in any way as being a competitive entity. We want it to be a place that they can think about doing a variety of aspirations in a different special location. And so my greatest hope is that we'll work together closely and see where we can collaborate and where we can really look to the future together to do things that maybe we hadn't thought about before. We have a long history in this community of doing such wonderful collaborative projects. So we look forward to creating a venue that can be really a centerpiece for the future.
You use words like centerpiece. I've heard words home, center, centerpiece, presence. That connotes a lot as to what this performing arts center will be.
So there's a line that we've heard over and over again, interestingly enough, through all of the feedback, that what really so many people in Sarasota, and we heard this quite directly also from the commission, is they're looking for a symbol that represents all of the wonderful things of Sarasota. That is people, because of the location, and it being a centerpiece right there, the park and the incredible location of it being on the bay, the views from the water as you're entering, the views coming in from the airport, that they're looking for the idea that there'll be an architectural symbol that can represent all of the great things that Sarasota is today and in the future.
Cheryl's right. The future is what it's all about. Who we are and what we want to be. But getting there requires work, starting with the City of Sarasota. To help us understand that side of the story, City Manager and my friend Marlon Brown. Right now we are discussing in the city a performing arts center. This is a major undertaking. Like the Bay Park Conservancy, it's a public-private partnership. What I'd like our viewers to know, explain indeed what a public-private partnership is and how it works.
This is, to your point, this is a legacy type project. Where we're trying to replace the iconic Van Wezel Performing Arts Hall, the Purple Cow, as people are so affectionately call it, with a new performing arts center. And when we talk about a public-private partnership, it's really more of a public nonprofit partnership where the existing Van Wezel Foundation. They will now rename themselves the Sarasota Performing Arts, Council or Committee. Or center, foundation, where they will, basically partner with the City of Sarasota to build a new performing arts center that will be a destination for all, with new, really great shows, so on and so forth. But that is sort of the partnership, working with a nonprofit foundation to build this new performing arts center.
So they need to go out and raise private funds, but first they need to have the blessing of the city. What's the status of the city right now with this?
Really great question, Suzanne. One of the reasons for that, obviously, we own the land. The intention is for us to still own the building. And so a couple of weeks ago, the City Commission took a very bold step forward in saying, we want to move forward with this new Performing Arts Center. We will partner with the Sarasota Performing Arts Center Foundation to raise the necessary money to realize this new Performing Arts Center. So yes, there will be private philanthropic dollars tied to public dollars as part of the funding for this facility. Right,
and the city obviously owns and operates the Van Wezel. As you know, a lot of people know, we talk about the building. The Van Wezel is flooding, and the size of the hall makes it difficult for a lot of people to bring in large acts, like the Broadway shows.
Correct.
So my question is, what are some of the primary factors that will influence the decision on the future of that building, the Van Wezel?
So what I intend to do, once we sort of now get what we call an implementation agreement for the new Performing Arts Center in place, and that the fundraising gets off to a really good start. We talk about doing something similar to the old Sarasota High School, where a blue ribbon committee, I think Commissioner Ahern Koch mentioned a purple ribbon committee.
Perfect.
Yes, where we will, get a group like that together to really help us determine what the future of that performing arts hall could be, would be, so on and so forth. One of the things that we need to keep in mind is that it needs to be, whatever we decide, financially sustainable, be able to really stand on its own and not really rely on the city for any support, funding, so on and so forth. Similar to the Sarasota Museum and what it is today. As you can see, it's now a really preserved, iconic building that is now a museum. Our intent is that, hopefully with this Purple Ribbon Committee, they will sit down and give some really practical options and uses that the City Commission can then ponder. But again, has to be sustainable on its own accord.
Right. So that's interesting that you'd have the Purple Ribbon Committee that will make a decision at the right time, because obviously there's a lot of hue and cry about what is to happen.
Correct.
To it.
Correct.
Question that's always asked every time we do anything: what about parking?
And that is going to be a challenge. And Suzanne, one of the things is that as we look to the future and how people move around, we're now in the age of Uber and Lyft and micro mobility and water taxis. So right now it calls for about 1,000 parking spaces. About 160 of that will be under the building. There's an additional 500 to 600 in and around where that new Performing Arts Center will be located. Centennial Boat Ramp, for example, the boaters don't use Centennial Boat Ramp at night. So there are another additional spaces. Sure. And then working with some of our private partners or public partners like the Sarasota Housing Authority, they have an intent to possibly redevelop McGowan Towers and create more opportunities for elders and seniors to live there and maybe create a parking structure. And so working with some of those who have some of those ideas about parking, working with them to also set aside some parking for those who want to visit the Bay Park or the Performing Arts Center, but creating some sort of shuttle service to get people back and forth. And so we think we have it solved, but those are things that we will work on as we realize this new Performing Arts Center.
Great. So the Performing Arts Center, we know people move here for the beautiful weather, for the water. People move here because of our arts and culture.
Could definitely.
That's always, so it seems to be on top of things. That, yeah, it's sunshine, but arts and culture. How will a new center impact all the arts groups?
So, really great question as well. You know, one of the things that, you know, we have to ensure is that those that are here, those that remain here, you know, that we share with them this facility if indeed, you know, they don't have, you know, room or spaces of their own. When you talk to Cheryl Melderson, who is the CEO, executive director of the foundation, they will talk about creating spaces where others would be able to use those spaces to have performances, etc. And so we want to make this a facility, a building for all, a destination for all. And so we're going to be having those conversations with different arts groups to see what their needs are, to see how we can accommodate them. And those conversations will continue as we start to plan and design for this new facility.
It'll take time. You know, it's interesting. To follow up on that point, we do have a flourishing arts community.
We do.
And great generosity with our patrons and all that, and support of the city. But in light of what's been happening, you've got the orchestra, you've got the players, Florida Studio Theater have all recently announced ambitions to build their own centers. How is that going to impact, to your point, the Performing Arts Center itself, when they seem to be doing their own thing?
Well, again, I look at it this way. The rising tide lifts all boats. So what they do only continues to lend credence to us as a cultural coast. Why people want to come here, why people would want to visit here. And so, you know, with the Florida Studio Theater and what they intend to do. The Players Theater has now, you know, sort of, you know, moved off of, you know, relocating to Lakewood Ranch, and we have discussions with them about the municipal auditorium. So again, we're creating sort of a close-by arts district. You know, a lot of the facilities that are thinking about going on their own, I think it's a great asset to our community, make us a little bit stronger in terms of being a cultural destination. And the you know, the new Performing Arts Center is just one puzzle, one piece in that big puzzle of why Sarasota is what it is today.
You know, you're right. The Players is moving right next door to all this.
Correct.
The whole Performing Arts Center, the Bay Conservancy, they're in a great place.
Yeah, the Art Center is right there.
So that's kind of interesting, and also that what productions that some of these people that have moved would be better served for larger crowds at the Performing Arts Center when it's complete.
I think it's a good problem to have, that we, you know,
Interesting point.
Yeah, that we're competing for their dates, you know, are being filled. Because remember, you know, back in the day, we had a season.
Right.
And it ran from, you know, October, November to about April, May.
Yep.
And we went kind of dark then. How great would it be to have, you know, year-round performances at the new Performing Arts Center? One of the creative ideas that they have is the ability to display shows on the lawn. We have a gathering lawn right outside on a wall where we can, and then the Bay Park Conservancy, they are also talking about events and event spaces, you know, in the 53 acres that we have. Suzanne, I am so encouraged and excited about what is going to be happening on our bayfront.
A critical element in this project is the artistic community. Stewarding artists, providing a venue to perform, engaging them in education. For that part of the story, we turn to Jim Shirley, Executive Director of the Arts and Cultural Alliance of Sarasota. I'd like to start with some background on the Arts and Cultural Alliance, what your mission is, your work that you do, and what are your stakeholders?
Well, the Arts and Cultural Alliance is actually the umbrella organization for all of arts and culture in our region. And what I mean by that is we're involved with organizations, with businesses, with the government, with people in general, with the school system. Our job is to make sure that all the citizens of our region have a way to engage in the arts that's significant to them. And that means a lot. Now, that being said, our specific missions are advocacy for the arts. We're there to be present at the table when decisions are being made about things that might impact the arts down the road. But if I'm running an opera or a theater, I can't be at that meeting. You have somebody there, and someone who knows the government officials, the elected officials, so that the points can get across that we're looking at. And that's the very same reason that the Alliance is a membership organization. Because if I go to talk to elected officials about my opinion, well, that's one man's opinion. But if I go talk to them about the feelings of our membership, which is thousands of members, who, by the way, are all voters, it has a bigger impact from an advocacy point of view. And the thing is, you got to stay with people, in front of people. One of our roles is advocacy for the arts and education. And our organization is one of the major reasons why the arts have always been available to all of the students in Sarasota County, no matter what their family background, no matter what their ethnic background may be. The arts are there, and it's such a critical part of the education system. And then the other thing is funding. A lot of people don't realize that one of the things that the Alliance does is we have several granting programs. And over the years, I'm very proud to say that we've been able to affect about $38 million worth of funding for our various arts and cultural organizations to make sure that this community can continue to grow and can use the arts to attract tourists and to build as a cultural city.
Let's talk about the efforts to build a performing arts center. How will that impact the Alliance? How will it balance the synergies, opportunities, and how will it all be affected as this moves forward?
Well, one, it's very exciting, and I am so glad to see this community, this region, embrace the idea of a new performing arts center. Because if you look back historically at the development of Sarasota as a community, Sarasota County, the city of Sarasota, the arts have always played a major part, going all the way back to John Ringling, when he would be bringing in ethnically diverse circus performers, to John McDonald and the literary crew that were all here, and then the development of the theaters and the importance of the opera and the orchestra and things that are culturally important to people. One of the major factors was when the Van Wezel was built in the beginning, because what that brought to us was a presenting hall as opposed to a producing hall. And we are so fortunate to have great theater, great opera, people that create new works and get involved in producing art. But people in general like to see Tony Bennett. They like to see big name acts being able to come in from different parts of the world and do a presentation. So that balance of having a great producing community with a great presenting hall is such an important thing in allowing all of the people to be able to enjoy the arts in ways they want.
So you feel that the Arts and Cultural Alliance will play, I like to use the word impactful, how that would play to the Performing Arts Hall.
One of the things that I've heard is I think there's probably going to be more than one presenting venue inside of that hall. Yeah. We only have a handful of buildings in the community where performing arts can perform. And I have hundreds of performing arts organizations who need places to perform.
Sure.
So this will help expand that ability to serve the community and to serve the arts and cultural community better. So from an Alliance point of view, this is a great move for this community's future.
So why isn't the orchestra, the players, the FST, in the plan?
So, even though the players or the orchestra may not be a part of building this building, they will still have utilization of that building potentially. And then you get a lot of groups, for example, artist series concerts, all of our choral arts groups who need places to play and to perform, but they don't own a building. So we need to have that type of flexibility in the venues that we have available. These are expensive propositions, and not every smaller organization can afford to build something like this. And the importance is the balance, being able to fully utilize the facilities we have without compromising the quality of the work you get.
Right, absolutely. Finally, let's look into the future. Imagine the Performing Arts Center is all complete. You've touched on that a bit. A world-class facility, of course. What would you like to see being done in the final analysis that hasn't been done before?
More I guess is the answer. We have such an unbelievably rich arts and cultural community here. When you look at a community this size, or any size really, in the country, There's almost nothing else like it. And the Van Waysville has served this community so well and can continue to do that. I personally hope that we will repurpose that building in some way so that we can expand the number of performance venues and opportunities that we have available, because we have far more performing arts organizations than we have venues. But you know, that decision, but what I'd like to see, I can tell you right up front, and I've said this all along, I can imagine 50 years from now, and I've said to people, if I say to you, Sydney, Australia, what do you think about? Worldwide, they think of that opera house on that beautiful bay. But we have an equally beautiful bay that's being developed, you know, community-wide for that project. And you put an iconic performing arts hall on that bay, and when people in Hong Kong hear Sarasota, Florida, they will think of that building on that bay. That's what I'd like to see.
Thank you, Jim. That is a beautiful image to end on. As we go forward, of course, there will be questions that need to be answered. They will be, and we have a highly successful model to guide us, the Bay Park Conservancy. But a word of caution. One, if you want to kill a big inspirational project that can change the course of history, demand all the answers up front. Two, we are at the proverbial fork in the road. We can either believe in the dream, proceed with trust, answer reasonable questions in good faith as the process evolves, or we can pick the dream apart until all that is left is fear of failure, division, and a missed opportunity. One path leads to progress, the other to stagnation and atrophy. If you would like to learn more about the Sarasota Performing Arts Center, visit these links. And you can always watch this show and all our previous episodes on my website, Facebook, and YouTube pages. That wraps up another one. Hope you learned something and enjoyed the show. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'm Suzanne Atwell, and we'll see you around town.
Atwell Media is a registered, not-for-profit 501c3. If you would like to support local public service programming like this, please visit our website, suzanneatwell.org, to make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for watching.